So we are going to do chapter 11. Unfortunately, we couldn't do this necessarily live in the class, but we can certainly talk about this again in the classroom because this is probably my favorite topic, marketing. So let's just kind of zip through and see what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about segmenting the market. We're going to be talking about brands. We're going to talk about the 4 Ps, and you'll learn a lot more about this next semester when you are doing your marketing actual course. So that's really important. And then the 7 steps to sales, the process. Okay, so let's start. This is really important that all startups must ask themselves, in order to succeed, a new firm must address this important issue. Who are our customers and how will we appeal to them? Number one is the customer, okay? You have to remember that when you are in business, you've got to focus on the customer. But who is your customer? So what you have to do is you have to what they call segment the market. You have to select a target market, and then you have to craft a unique positioning strategy. How am I going to talk to these people that I want to talk to? That's what we're talking about here. And as we've talked about many times before, segmenting the market can be done in lots of different ways. And we'll chat about that even more in this lecture. So what groups of customers in my market are similar enough that the same product or service will appeal to them all of them? So for example, if I am selling dog food, of course, that's one way to segment the market, because I am going to, really want to talk to people who are dog lovers, those who love rescue dogs, those who love, different types of breeds of dogs, those who are thinking about getting a dog. Though that's the segment, and that is not an age group. It could be absolutely anybody who is interested in dogs. And which specific group of customers? Well, we just mentioned it is going to be those who are specifically interested in the dog market. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you want to position a unique strategy for those people. And one of the things that's really important to think about is, how would you like to talk to them? And one of the best ways, not the only way, but because there's lots of ways to talk to customers, but especially with something like dogs, you want to really touch on emotion. You want to touch on, do you care about your dog? How much do you care about your dog? If you love your children and you love your pets, like, care about them by giving them good food, that sort of kind of messaging is what you want to do. But also, it's very important to know who your competition is, because you need to be able to send something different than your competition is sending. Because trust me, your competition is also talking about, how you love your dog and you want to feed them the best. So there's going to be lots of different types of messaging that will go on in that exercise. So segmenting the market, as we talked about many times before, you look at it geographically, and that's the other thing to think about when you're starting a business. Who do I want to talk to? And it might be a good idea, especially in sort of the test and learn stage, is maybe to not go like too gangbusters big. Maybe you want to focus in on a certain area, because it might be easier. Like, you don't necessarily want to go global. You might want to stay local. So for example, if we're going back to the dog food, maybe you just want to stick to those in Toronto or Ontario, or maybe Canada, depending on if you want to go that large. The variables, like, who are these people? Typically, what do they look like? You know about demographics, age, gender, family size, income, that sort of thing. But again, it's just one factor when you're segmenting. But more important, and we've talked about this many times, is the psychographics and the behavioral variables about these people. What are they thinking? What is their lifestyle? What do they do? Where do they live? What do they wear? Maybe, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but maybe if they're a dog lover and they live in Toronto, maybe they are people who wear, Canada Goose, for example, because it's freezing cold out there and they have to walk these dogs, and especially in the winter time. And that is something that you should think about. and again, it would just be one segment of it. It's probably not the only ones that are wearing Canada Goose, and not all Canada Goose people have dogs, but you can see how there might be a correlation between the two. So these are the kinds of things that you think about when you're thinking about segmenting the market. Uh, so they're using the computer industry. The computer industry could be segmented in the following ways: product type, handheld, tablet, PC, workstation, mini computers, mainframes, and supercomputers. You know, yes, that's very true. So you can think about it from that perspective. You know, there's lots of different people that you might be wanting to tap into, and of course, another thing is, which is huge in the computer industry, of course, is, are you an Android or are you an iOS individual? That's a big one too, because that makes a huge difference. And then also, who's going to be my user? Is it individuals? Is it businesses? Is it business to business? Is it business to consumer? These are the kinds of things that you have to think about when you're talking about segmentation. The target market. So once a firm has segmented the market, a target market must be chosen. The market must be sufficiently attractive, and the firm must have the capability to serve it. By focusing on clearly defined market, firm can become an expert in that market and then be able to provide customers a high level of service. Remember, let's think about, who is this customer? Like, who do you want to target? Now you've decided it's going to be dogs. Okay, dog lovers. Okay, so who within those dog lovers do you want to target? So you want to think about the positioning statement. So after selecting your target market, which is now, we've said that they're going to be dog lovers, and they live in Toronto, and they wear Canada Goose, and they have an income of about 60,000 plus. Now we've got a bit of an idea of who this person is. Now, after that, we're going to start thinking about positioning statements. Positioning is the part of the marketing that the firm is claiming is owned. So what part of the market do I own? Do I own, like, the really good dog food market? Like, I remember my son used to work for a woman who had dog food, actually, believe it or not, pet food that she made from real food, and that was her market. So it was real food fed to dogs, not processed. It was, really clean. She sold it from her store, of all things. So all the people who came to her store to buy real people food actually were buying their dogs, the dog food. And it was a very select group of people, right? People that were already familiar with her business and company. And that's how she positioned it. She said, "You're already here, so why don't you buy dog food?" So that's sort of what you have to think about from a positioning statement. A company has its position and primary points of differentiation. I talk about this all the time. Differentiation. You must be able to differentiate your product. If you can't differentiate your product, if it's just a me too, it's not going to work, because there's no such thing as me too products. Because if someone already has a foothold in that area, it's going to be very difficult for you to crack that marketplace. And it could be lots of different ways of doing it, of how you crack that market. But you really have to understand the landscape. This is where all that research that you've done so far needs to come in. So, here we're going to be looking at Casper, right? Casper was one of those products, where uh, one of those products where they were selling mattresses, and they were looking at the different ways that people were selling mattresses. And this was really interesting. The Casper people took a bit of a bite out of the way Tesla was doing their business and how Peloton was doing their business, which is going direct to the customer, by opening up stores. And they said, you know what, just roll up this mattress, and you can you can buy this particular thing, and they use some really interesting messaging using young people. They went after millennials, like the very young sort of transient type of a market, um, and not the big brands. They came up with this whole new concept of, and they really were outliers in a way in the way they were selling product. Really interesting story that I think you should follow, which maybe we will we can chat about certainly in the class. um, so you come up with sort of a tagline, and you should test taglines, by the way. See which one actually some people uh, what resonates with people. So, example, in Nike's familiar slang, just do it. The beauty of this simple three-word expression is it applies equally to a 21-year-old or to a 65-year-old, right? So, exactly. So, you want a tagline that is going to be kind of universal. Unless you want it specifically for some particular market, you do want it to be, really targeted at your specific market. So that's really important. I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'm going to have to put this into a few segments.